Yes, friends. Welcome, everybody. This is Tiger Claw Radio. That time again. Oh, boy. What a week. Got two nice long band casts for you. I got an awesome album off of Bandcamp. I guess you pronounce this Vaporhead, but they did that old thing that used to be cool in the 90s where they would switch letters around for numbers. It's leet speak, man. But they make some good funk music. So all that and more coming up. Let's kick things off with, oh boy, give me a second here. So one of the problems with Vaporhead is that a lot of the tracks are really long, so I got to be careful about what I lead the show off with. The last thing I want to do is ease into an 8.5 minute funk jam and then have everybody be lost by the time we get back. All right, so bear with me 1 second here. I can't think of a more appropriate song for kicking off a recording session on Friday night. This is the final track, the 11th track off of the album. What album is this? Am I Slack Enough For Ya? It's Vaporhead. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. back again. Love me some Vaporhead. Okay, so let's kick things off with the first Vancast. There's only two, and the first one goes back to, I think it was Wednesday morning? Tuesday or Wednesday? I looked it up and I forgot already. Tuesday morning, right, because Monday I was at home. Yeah, so we're going to talk about some fighting games, we're going to talk about some other stuff, and we're going to talk about some cold weather. Stick with us, you're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Morning, everybody, it's the Vancast. Tuesday morning, it's 65 degrees outside, 6:17. Finally making it back out on the road, nice and early. This is the time when I like to do it. And what a morning, too. It's nice and mild. Oh, yeah. It's definitely a little on the cooler side, but not uncomfortably so. It still feels good, man. I dig it. I dig it. All right, now give me a second. I'm backing up off of my spot on the road, and we're going to be, we're going to be hitting the curb. Then we're going to be on our way. Finally did play my fighting games. I had a bit of a dive, surprisingly so, into Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which is, again, amongst fighting games, is somewhat of a black sheep. But I enjoyed it. I got into it with my son, and he took to it, a little local multiplayer, which is awesome. And Street Fighter Cross Tekken has games for Windows Live, right? Which sucks, because that's offline and doesn't work very well. And most of the games that have games for Windows Live are either unplayable or you have to patch them in order to play them. So the problem we were having was it wouldn't connect to games for Windows Live, which is fine to play offline, but it wouldn't check what DLC I owned either. Like, I own all the extra characters for that game, I own all the extra, like, alternate outfits and all that stuff. And it wouldn't check, so it looked like we just had the vanilla base game, which sucked. Sucked real bad. So I ended up patching it. There's two patches. There's an online patch, which supposedly makes the online function work again, and then there's a community mod patch, which kills the online, makes it so online doesn't work at all, but it also kills games for Windows Live, and it adds several characters that are supposed to be unique to the console version, like Pac-Man. There's a character where Pac-Man is driving a big wooden mech, and then there's Mega Man and a couple others. All that, like I said, in Street Fighter Cross Tekken. So I got that installed, my son and I played it for a while, and that was great. And then my son wanted to move over to Street Fighter 5. He was like, hey Dad, let's play the one where you can play online, and there's leagues and ranks and stuff. I was like, okay. So we switched over to Street Fighter 5, and of course, again, my son is 9, so it didn't do so hot. But when I was playing against them, you can't just destroy a child. That's not the way it works in video games. Not if you want the kid to keep playing. So I'm usually pretty good about that. But he wanted to play online. So it's like, all right, man, you want to play online? That's cool. But I want you to understand these people are out to kill you. And he goes, okay, Dad, I got it. So, excuse me, I watched him just get destroyed. Wowie zowie. Yeah, it was pretty brutal. Absolutely destroyed. In the end, he was starting to get tilted, but it was like, yeah, this is when it's time to walk away. He was like, all right, Dad. Okay, so he went to bed. That was my evening last night. It was a good time. I had been talking about fighting games. I gave them a try, and it all came back at once. Oop, hang on. Alright. Cops just ran past. Threw the sirens on and ran past. Are we good? Yeah, they weren't after me. Alright, I think we got it all together again. What happened? Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I'm walking into a big wreck, everybody. Whoa!
1, 2, 3, 4 cop cars, fire engines, ambulances. Somebody died up there. All right, we're hanging a U-turn, and we're gonna go this way. Whatever that was, I don't want any part of it. Just a few minutes away from my house. It's the same. It's the intersection right after where I typically stop for groceries every Monday or Tuesday, first day out of the week. Some sort of major accident. I don't know what's going on, but all I can see, because remember, it's dark outside, all I can see is a cascade of blue and red flashing lights. Lots of police. So I don't know. I don't know if maybe like some sort of utility malfunction, like there was a telephone pole crashing in the middle of the intersection or something. But there was some sort of disaster there, so I'm gonna skip the grocery store this morning, which is gonna suck. And I'm turning around and heading back the back way. Yikes! Well, that'll change my plans. What was I talking about? Yes, fighting games. I had ended the evening by watching my son get destroyed in Street Fighter V. The game's changed a little bit since I've been on. I looked at my replays, and I was playing Street Fighter V in 2017. Is the last time I played it. July 2017. It's the last time I played a ranked match anyway, so it's been a while. Year and a half, something like that. So this morning I sat down. I got my son is in bed still. I have some time just for me. Let's do it. I loaded up Street Fighter V and then played a couple of ranked matches. And I'm going to be honest. I on paper, this is what I expected to happen, but when I actually experienced it, it was a little rough. Loss after loss after loss. We're talking about 3 consecutive losses and swept on all counts. So not once did I even pick up a round. It was pretty brutal. I jumped back in as Armika, who was my main back in 2017 when I used to play. I'm still kind of relearning her because I picked up a couple of the moves again from playing with my son last night, but it's been a while. And getting out there this morning and playing, it just seemed like every move I threw out, my opponents had an answer for me. And it was I took a wallop. So last night I was kind of chuckling to myself about the brutal slice of reality my son got, and then I got a slice carved up for me this morning. I wonder if this is ultimately what got me to stop playing, was just the dealing with the losses became too much before work. Taking a string of losses, and then after that string of losses having to go into the office, or taking a string of losses and then after that having to go to sleep for the night. With so little time to play, I guess I just decided I couldn't take it anymore. Still a great game though. Good times. Let's see. Excuse me. 8 minutes in. All right. Fighting games was only one of the things I wanted to talk about, though. There was also, I got on with Alex Swingle last night, and we were talking as I was kicking around. I think at that point, I was just playing. That's right, I was playing Dead or Alive 5, DOA 5. I hadn't played it in a long time, and I was just kicking around in the arcade mode on a lower difficulty. And it sucked because it's been a year or so, but there were a couple of days where I put a ton of time all at once into DOA 5. Played through the arcade mode a whole bunch of times, and I unlocked a bunch of stuff, and I don't know what happened. I must have I don't know if it's one of those games where when you clear the cache it deletes your save, or maybe I had to re-download it for some reason and that deleted my save. But I was definitely starting from scratch again, and that sucked. But still a fun game. So I was playing some DOA 5, and I was talking to Swingle about import games, about how I wanted to get back into the Sega Saturn because now the import world is open and I haven't really done anything with it yet. And we talked about PS1 imports. I got a hold of a couple of PS1 import games last year. Nothing special, a couple of pachinko games, and I had been playing them on an emulator. I got emulators set up on PC, and I have a CD-ROM drive, like a DVD-R drive. So I would pop that drive open and then just run the CD, run the physical disc off my computer. And I kicked around the idea of getting a Japanese PS2 to handle that. And that would open up PS2 import games because I don't have a way to play those yet. I never have either. And Swingle was like, "Hey man, why don't you try emulating PS2? Doesn't take much. All it takes is like a solid GPU, with 1 gig on it, and 3+ gigahertz quad core processor, all of which I have. So hey man, give it a try." So I did, and I gotta say, it worked pretty well. Excuse me, sorry for the yawning. Yeah, so I hooked up a PS2 emulator for the first time ever, and I got Soul Calibur 2 on PlayStation 2, and I was playing that on my computer, which is really sweet. I was really digging that, man. So I could my PS2 library could open up again. So I have some exploring to do amongst my own PS2 games to see what I want to play. Because being able to play them on my PC, just in my favorite chair on the screens I have set up without shuffling hardware around, I think would open it up a little bit. It took a while to get the configuration right, though. I got the emulator and I got the BIOS, and the games ran like right away, but they looked blurry. It was really weird. Like nothing was optimized for my setup, so it just looked really blurry and strange. And it took me probably a half an hour because there were so many options under the video settings. I had to keep flipping them around and figuring out what did what. But I finally got it running, and I enjoyed some Soul Calibur 2, which was really great. So maybe in the big sales, big end of year sales, I might pick up Soul Calibur 6. Who knows? I might pick up Soul Calibur 6, but I also kind of have my eye on Tekken 7, especially since I've been playing Street Fighter Cross Tekken lately. That might be cool. But as of right now, those are the only 2 games on my get list. Because to be honest, I've been spending most of my time collecting synthesizer parts rather than video games. Those 2 fighting games, and maybe a new DLC for Dead by Daylight, because I still go back to that every once in a while. Excuse me. And that could be fun. Alright. Man, I can't believe there was a huge accident this morning. That sucks. Alright, give me a second here. Well, we're 13 and a half minutes in. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about if there's anything else worth going over, but I think that about covers it. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys back to the studio where no cars are smashing into each other and it's safe, and I'll see you guys there. I'm going to go in and do my Tuesday at the office.
Back again in the studio here on Tiger Claw Radio. Here's some news for you. Anamanaguchi, an old staple of the show. One of the first real chiptune acts I got into. In fact, when I think back to how I got into chiptune, the very beginning it was Hemrock saying, "Hey, head over to 8-Bit Peoples and get that Anamanaguchi album." So they were really like one of the cornerstones of chiptunes for me. Well, they got their first album out in 6 years. It's just called USA, and it just dropped today. Last album, Endless Fantasy, has initially I didn't care. It was a little poppy for me when it first came out, but I warmed up to it. I eventually ended up getting the vinyl, and my daughter in particular loves that album. So we'll check this one out at some point, but I haven't dropped the coinage on it yet. You guys know how I like my free music, and especially being part of the vaporwave scene, where most albums are free. I've been somewhat spoiled. And the ones that aren't free, I can just head over to my Bandcamp and listen to the 1,400 plus albums that are already in my collection. So with that, no Anamanaguchi this week. We're gonna head back to Vaporhead and listen to some more funk party music. Here we go. This is the 8th track. Now, some of the tracks on this album, they do that thing where they're written in Japanese, but chances are it was just characters that are dropped into Google Translate. And unless it's like one of my favorite albums, I've kind of given up on going over to Google Translate and figuring out what the songs are actually called. I did it for a few TT Slider tracks because I love TT Slider. And those albums are amazing in my opinion. But these I have not yet done. So this is we're just gonna call it track 8. How long is it? It's 4:20. That's how long it is. It's 4:20. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. back again. Vaporhead. I feel like I should read off the way that's spelled in case you guys decide to track down Vaporhead albums. And there are many. And they are all top-notch funk like that. Let's see. If you don't know your leet speak, that's V4P0RH34D. Or you could put your head in the microwave. I don't know. Anyway, let's take a second before we head on to the next Vancast. This is the part of the show where I like to thank the sponsors. Now, we're 27 minutes in. This is right around where this usually happens. So these are the guys that give of their resources to make sure that we can keep coming back every week. And let me tell you, these guys are making sure it happens, because we have these weeks like this one where I'm out taking care of stuff and I'm barely hanging on, but I can make it to the computer for these guys. I like to read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. They are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Durabka, and Konstantin Kelman. They also get early access to the show. So as soon as it gets completed and uploaded to the internet, it goes over to Patreon. They can get copies of it. There's an RSS feed up there. They can feed it into their whatever podcatching software they have. It's good stuff. So thank you guys very much, and I hope you guys are having a good time. All right. So before we head off to the last Vancast, wanted to mention a couple things. Postal 4. Hey, that's a game that is out in early access, I guess, but it still counts. What do you guys feel about the Postal series? Now, this is something that Death Adder mentioned it on his podcast that I was listening to on the way home today, and it reminded me of it. I really enjoyed the first couple Postal games. I think the first one was a bigger deal for me, even though it was like when the first Postal came out, the controls were so broken. It wasn't as playable as it is now if you get it off of Steam today. But I didn't have the first Postal when it came out. It was one of these games where I knew what it was, and I knew the controversy behind it. And I even went to my buddy Engie's house when we were teenagers, and he was like, hey man, I got a demo for this game. The whole point of the game is you go kill everyone. You just gun down all the innocent people, and that's it. It's called Postal. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, man. It's crazy. You want to play it? Yes, I do. Let's play it. So he loads up this demo for this dirty game. That's the most violent thing I've ever heard of in my life. But of course, this is like Windows 95. Okay? And the first Postal, it didn't even work. Something was wrong with the way he had his graphics set on his Hewlett-Packard Windows 95 computer. Everything looked like the Technicolor Dream Nightmare. It was like pink and purple and not suitable colors for murdering innocent people. I'll tell you that much.
That's great.
You need dark brooding colors for that. You need lots of blacks and browns and 9 Inch Nails music playing in the background. So that was my first experience with Postal. Now, Postal 2 came much later on. I didn't play Postal 2 when it was a brand new game. I played that on Steam. Was it on Steam? I can't remember if it was on... No, it was on GOG. I played it on GOG. Probably sometime in the last 10 years. That wasn't when I played as a small kid. But you know what? I still enjoyed it. It was weird. It's kind of a tough game to go back to because it's so old. Gary Coleman is in it, which is even more weird because he's in it like as himself. It's just like, yo, Gary Coleman's here. Why? I don't know. So, and then Postal 3 was outsourced. That's like the game we like to pretend didn't exist. So now the development team of Running with Scissors is actually making a new game. That's the name of the company, Running with Scissors. So this is a real thing, and it's $20 or so. It's in the range of $20, like I don't know, 17 or 18 bucks. But it's early access, and I have a feeling when it becomes a full-fledged game, then the price will go up because that seems to be the thing these companies are doing now. Whatever the case, I like the idea of a game in the $20 range. Right? That's what games used to cost. That's what they used to cost. Not $60. Get out of here. You better have an awesome game for $60. And even if it is an awesome game, I'm probably just going to listen to other people tell me about how awesome it is. And not buy it. Because that's a lot of money. It really is. So we'll see. What I've actually been playing You're going to find out in this next Vancast. PS2. This is the PS2 Vancast. Armored Core, Soul Calibur, not caring at all about professional baseball. Stick with us. It's Tiger Claw Radio.
Morning, everybody. What is today? This is not off to a good start on the Vancast. It's 54 degrees outside, 6:19 in the morning. It's funny that it feels a little cold, but I know that at 54 degrees, cold has not even begun. Alright, I'm working on pulling out of my spot in front of the house. Just give me a second. Yeah, so here's hoping that we can make our stop at the grocery store this morning and not have to worry about all the craziness that happened yesterday. No big accident, no cops, nothing like that. I looked it up. I looked up the intersection on Google this morning, hoping to find some sort of, article or police report onto, describing what actually happened, but there wasn't anything. So, on one hand, that's a good sign. Hopefully, nothing. Whoa, look at that. Just saw a deer go by. A deer was running at full speed down the road lengthwise. Like typically when you see a deer run across the road, you see them go from like right to left and then they just go right across. This deer was trucking down the road like it wanted to go, somewhere the roads were taking it. I don't know. Very weird. Not great on the part of the deer. In environmental biology, they taught us that people throw cigarettes out the window of their cars, and the deer come and eat the cigarette butts, and then the deer get addicted to nicotine. So then they come forage for cigarette butts on the sides of the roads, which is part of the reason why deer get so prevalent around the roads. So, I don't know. There's a million reasons why a deer could be in the road, but so I don't know if that's exactly what happened in this case, but I could totally see that happening, especially in my old neighborhood. Alright, here's a second here. Started going through my PlayStation 2 games this morning. Giving my PS2 library a second lease on life now that I have an emulator going, and I haven't tried it yet, but save states should work. I think the first game that comes to mind is Armored Core 2. Armored Core 2 was a PS2 game I got. Back when I was doing the clipboard shtick, I would write down like 3 or 4 games, and I'd be like, alright, here's my get list, and then one by one I'd go through them and pick them up off of eBay or whatever. So I got Armored Core 2, and when I played it, I started playing through like the battle system, where you like face off one-on-one against another like robot mech sort of thing. And I was digging it, but one of the problems I had with it was the penalty for death, the penalty for losing a match was so high, right? It was like a ranked ladder kind of deal. And then if you lost, then you had to go way, way down. I don't remember exactly how the mechanics were, but I do know the result was if you lost a battle, you were looking at like 10 different battles to try and get back to where you were. So yeah, save states might make that a little better. So I might try some Armored Core 2. Alright, and I made it to the grocery store safely, so let's go check it out, and then when we get back, talk more PS2. That was a good trip to the grocery store. I did okay. The bananas are a little green, I'm not gonna lie, but I got some chai ultra spice tea from Twinings. A little bit more flavor than the generic black that I've been drinking, which I dig. Black tea is what I drink. According to the Twinings box, I think about 3 cups of black tea equals 1 cup of black coffee in terms of caffeine content. It's not a hard and fast rule, depends a lot on how long you brew it. And it also depends on what kind of coffee you're comparing it to. You talk about the caffeine content of coffee, that can be, well, how many grounds are you putting in, or what kind of grounds are you doing? It's the same kind of deal. But roughly, rule of thumb, that's how I look at it. It's 3-to-1 sort of ratio. So I used to drink like 5 cups of coffee a day. I had a coffee pot up by Pinzer Studios, just in the little bathroom there. I'd wake up and brew a pot of one of these like small pots. It's probably half a pot, I guess. I don't know. Think of it more like a cup, 2 cups. And I would drink my 2 cups in the morning in the first hour. Then I would drive to work and drink another cup. So it's 3 cups really before my day has even begun at that point. So that said, I drink about 3 cups of tea throughout a single day, start to finish. So I think I'm doing all right. It's not just the caffeine either. I was worried about my stomach, probably more so than the caffeine. I was worried about my stomach lining. I remember feeling very sick when I would drink coffee towards the end. It's been a while though. I ordered some hot tea. I was in a cafe like 2 weeks ago, and I ordered some hot tea, and I was looking at my phone. I wasn't like paying close attention. Hot tea, please. And the guy goes, yeah, okay, gotcha. And then he makes me a latte. Don't know why he did it. I've spaced many a time on many a thing, but I ended up with a latte in my hand after not drinking coffee for almost 2 years. And I took a sip, and it was an experience I can only describe as psychedelic. Especially like not seeing it coming. I was like, this doesn't smell quite right. Let's give it a try. Woo! Woo! That is strong tea. Yeah, 1 sip of that stuff was enough. So that's my grocery store trip. We were talking about PS2 games. I'm going to get back to that in a second, but here's something that happened, and this will give you an idea of exactly how much I care about sports. I found out yesterday that my team, the Washington Nationals, was in the World Series. Didn't know it. Not only did I find it out yesterday, but I was like, oh, and game 1 is tonight. I had no idea, because that's how much I paid attention to sports these days. I don't even know how the game went down. Game 1 came and went already, apparently, against the Houston Astros. Back in 2006, just a couple of years before TCR started, I was a huge baseball fan. Huge baseball fan. I was all about the Nats, man. Now, I don't know. I can't quite bring myself to care these days. Maybe it's part of getting older. Maybe it's because I don't know any other baseball fans, so it's not like I'm going to go to work and talk about sports. But anyway, we were talking about the PS2 specifically, and how emulation was going to give me a new lease on, give my PS2 library a new lease on life. For a couple of reasons. Because when I sit down to play games and I'm not thinking about it, I sit down on my computer chair, not in front of my TV. And I can now get that library going without having to mess with the switch box on the TV. It's a lot easier now. All I gotta do is fish out my controller, make sure it's plugged in, then I'm good to go. Final Fantasy 12 is another good example. Now, I know I'm knee deep in Final Fantasy already, but when I got my PS2, and this is a story I've told many times on the air, I didn't have a whole lot of stuff. This was like my wife and I just got together, and we didn't have any money, and my older brother got me a PS2 for Christmas that year, and it was like a big deal. It was like a lifesaver kind of thing. The best quality video games I had access to at the time, and he gave me a PS2 with Final Fantasy 12 in it. Final Fantasy 12 was like a brand new game at the time. So it's kind of special, a little bit of a special game. I put a lot of time into Final Fantasy 12, but I never did beat it. And I still have, unlike some of my other ventures into RPGs, I still have my save for that one, but I don't think I can, after all these years, dive back into where I was and know what to do or what was going on in the story. I remember the story being really convoluted. Even for a Final Fantasy game, it was really convoluted. People with armor walking around talking in cutscenes, and I didn't know who they were or what they were talking about and stuff like that. It was very strange game. So yeah, I was collecting those games on Steam, and when it came to Final Fantasy 12, for whatever reason, they want a lot of money for that game, like $40. And I'm kind of like, nah, man. No, I'm not gonna pay $40. Now, I don't have to. I can just play my PS2 copy that was already paid for. Perfectly good copy of the game. There you go. So that's one thing. So we've got Armored Core 2. We've got Final Fantasy 12. The game I tested it out on was Soul Calibur 2, which I really liked. I started playing through the arcade mode on Soul Calibur 2 with Ivy, because Ivy is my Soul Calibur main, because why would it not be? And that was a great time, man. I really dug that. Alright, give me a second here. Man, I gotta say, it is a foggy day out today. You know, another one I wouldn't mind playing on the old PC is Twisted Metal Black. I like the idea of controller compatibility. Anything I can hook up to my computer is viable to use as a controller for the PS2 games now, which is pretty sweet. Old fighting games on the PS2, for that reason, become much more viable, you know, because I can hook up my arcade stick and I could play, like, I don't know, one of those old cheap King of Fighters games for the PS2 with my sweet arcade stick, and it becomes a much better experience. You know, I never really thought too much of those days as like fighting game days, I guess, but how should I put this? The PS1, okay, the PS1 era had a lot more good fighting games than I gave it credit for. Rival Schools, right? That's a PS1 game. We had a couple of copies of Rival Schools circulating the neighborhood. My buddy Engie had it and sold it back before we knew it was going to be like a collector's item. And my older brother bought it and still has it. So that's a pretty good game. We used to play Toe Ball number 1 a lot. That was somewhat of a simple fighting game, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the adventure mode. But I think the big one was Darkstalkers. My older brother got Darkstalkers for the PS1, the first one, and we really loved that game. I think that was the first time we ever got our hands on a fighting game where we put it in and we were both playing it for the first time at the same time. Oh, excuse me. So we were pretty evenly matched. That, if you can find a fighting game and somebody to play who's like a buddy and you're evenly matched, that's like when fighting games are the best of the best of the best. It doesn't get any better than that. It really doesn't. Yeah, so the original Darkstalkers I think of very fondly for that reason. He used to main Felicia because of waifu reasons. And I settled into Bishamon. It was like the samurai. After trying a few different people, Bishamon had a move where he would throw his sword out, and if he stabbed you with it, he'd cut you in half. So you had to learn to throw the sword out, and then once they got stuck with the sword, then you had to do a second combination. And you could either pull them over to you, kind of like a scorpion, get over here type move, or you could slice them in half for extra damage. So I used Bishaman a lot. But then my older brother got Darkstalkers 3, which had an expanded roster, right? Like it a lot of extra characters. That's where BB Hood, Baby Bonnie Hood, came into play. And then Pyron, the boss of the game, became a selectable character. But they messed up Bishaman. They messed with that move combo, like they nerfed it. So I could never get into Darkstalkers 3, and that's where we kind of like split ways when it came to Darkstalkers. He got really obscenely good at Felicia because he had like a printed strategy guide, and I switched to Pyron, who was the boss, and yeah, that was it. But that was probably the most evenly matched I've ever been in a fighting game. Easily the most fun I've had with a fighting game, like on a console, you know, if you discount like playing Street Fighter V over the last few years and whatnot. In my younger days, that was the most fun I ever had in a fighting game. Yeah, PS1 had a lot of good fighting games. Street Fighter Alpha 3, that's a great fighting game. People don't, for some reason, people seem to talk bad about the PS1 version of that game. I like the PS1 version. PS1 version of Street Fighter Alpha 3 has got a bigger roster than any other version. Bigger than the arcade, right? Kaiser told me some reason. Hold on a second. Excuse me. Kaiser told me some reason that it wasn't. It didn't stack up. I seem to remember it being legit too, like something to do with the frame rate or something like that. But Alpha 3 was a great game, man. It was a great game. When I got my PS3, one of the first like games I bought off of PS1 or the PSN was Street Fighter Alpha 3, and that was one that I played enough that it actually was a good purchase. It's a little tough to go back to now just because you have to load between every battle. And being away from the PS1 for so long, that can be a little, that can be kind of taxing to deal with. Oh man, that guy just took his life in his hands. I'm going on like a back road now with a speed limit of 30 miles per hour. And there's woods all around. And it's very twisty and turny, and it's very steep grade. We're going uphill, very twisty and turny, and you can't see very far ahead of you. And I just witnessed somebody passing two people. There's 3 cars in front of me. The car directly in front of me turned into the oncoming traffic lane and pushed ahead of the other 2. Again, 1 lane this road is. So he's rolling the dice, man. If anybody came the other way, there's no way they would have seen each other. That'd have been it. And I'd have been late to work. All right. How are we doing? We're 18 and a half minutes in. This Vancast went a little bit longer than I expected it to, but the concept of PS2 really opening up for me again seems really cool. Infinite memory card space. Oh yeah, man. All right. Excuse me. How was that? That yawn, that's the sound. I'm going to send you guys back to the studio. And I can't wait to join you there.
Back again in the studio. Okay. Look, I don't want you guys to be mad. All right? Don't be mad at me, and don't roll your eyes. I started playing through Quake again. I know. It's like every other week I talk about playing Quake. Or I'm playing Quake. Or there's a Quake mod pack. Or, hey, remember when Quake? Or more about Quake. It's my favorite game. I'm sorry. I started playing through it again on this time on Nightmare skill level. Never actually got anywhere on Nightmare skill level. Tried it a couple times in the past. I only ever got as far as the 2nd level. I just figured it was this kind of thing out of reach. I was like, hey man, I'll just play it on hard. I don't need to crank it up to 11. If hard is all I can handle, that's fine. I can just sit here and sip my tea and pick flowers and not be hardcore enough to survive on Nightmare skill level.
Dad, do something.
So I started playing through Quake again on Nightmare skill level. Now, the last time I tried this, it's been a couple of years, but the last time I tried it, I got as far as the second level, and I got obliterated. I got obliterated, man. If you've never played Quake on Nightmare skill level, let me tell you, there's more enemies than you have bullets for. So I don't know. I guess you got to line them up and shoot through one so that you hit several in a line with a single bullet. Or know where every secret is, because that's the problem I run into. I keep running out of ammo. It's a little easier now because I've played it online a few times since the last time I tried, and people have told me, hey, here's some tips. Like the shamblers, the big guys with where their entire face is a mouth. I didn't know those guys had a defense against explosions. Like, use the rockets on them. The rockets aren't quite as effective. I didn't know it was like Pokemon, where different monsters had different weaknesses and strengths. I came off of Doom 2. I was like, hey, the guns make things go boom. Just take them and point them at the monsters, and there you go, and that's how you win. But apparently that is the thing, because I've made it almost all the way through the second episode. This is in one sitting, too. Knocked out the first episode, did most of the second one. And by the end of it, I don't think I blinked even one time through that entire session. So this is a game that, 1997, 1996 that came out? I think it was 96. We're in 2019. However many years that is, it hasn't lost it, man. Not a step. Oh, man. What a good game. But PS2, right? PS2 is good. All right, boys and girls. This is the part of the show where we like to read. I say we. Jeez Louise. You know, I hate it when people do that, too. I don't want to do it myself. Me, because it's just me here. And my son also. But this is the part where comments get read. If you want to interact with the show, it's just us. This is not. We're not Joe Rogan. Come on now. If you write something, we'll read it. Head over to YouTube. That's the best place to go. Leave a comment there. Or if you know me personally, you can shoot me an email. Just make sure you're clear about what is okay to read on the air and what isn't. Because I don't want to get into man, you read off all this stuff and I don't want to. It's weird. That actually happened to me once. Somebody said like a nice comment about how they were listening to TCR. This is like 5 years ago. And I looked at the guy's channel on YouTube, and I was like, hey, man, check out this guy's channel. He said nice things about me. I looked at his channel, and everything was great. And we're gonna exchange shout-outs, because that's what we do. We reciprocate. And the guy left a comment like the next week. He's like, that's really weird, man. That was a weird thing that you did. It felt weird listening to you talk about me. So try and be careful about that. So just be clear what what you do and don't want read on the air. So I'm heading back to the comment section now. We got a few. Now, last time we did this, there were like a couple comments that came in the very next day. So there's a couple from last week. First one comes from Darabka, the gaming beast, old friend. Who, by the way, looking forward to seeing you at MagFest, buddy. Blizzard has been a really crappy company for a while. Yes, this is so blatant of a screw-up. Normies that are getting the memo now. The South Park episode and a tweet was hilarious and poignant. I'm disappointed but not surprised the NBA execs and players chose to bend the knee to our little Pooh Bear, and the CCP. I enjoyed the NBA and I bought NBA products. Same with Blizzard. However, I understand our world is becoming more and more cyberpunk dystopian nightmare world where writers foresaw in the 80s. The Vaporwave song was interesting. The Windows Fail Sound Sanic song was great cringe and eerie. I can't. How do I make it stop? CF. Yes. By the way, kiddo, that was a thing last week. We had Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, right here. I can show you the album art. Where the songs are completely recreated with Windows error sounds. It sounds very bad. But bad on purpose. We'll listen to that again off the air. Because I closed the show with that last week. And I just hope nobody's upset with me. All right, so the big takeaway from that is I didn't know you were an NBA fan. I've never been into the NBA, but it's not because I don't like basketball. It's because I'm not into sports. My favorite sport is baseball, and I didn't even know my favorite team was in the World Series, and they're winning it too. As of this morning, they had 2 wins. Did they play today? I'm gonna look it up right now. Hang on. World Series 2019. Okay, Game 3 is underway now. The Houston Astros are up 2-0. Wow. Even if they win, they're still behind. I don't know. Cleveland Indians blew a lead like that to the Cubs. Was that just a couple years ago? Yeah, you never know. Series ain't over yet. But that's sports ball for you. Yeah, the whole thing about the protesters in China and all that stuff, it's very, very strange. Very strange. I think the strangest thing is that Wizards of the Coast is like the one company that's been like, don't censor anything. Just let the people talk about what they want to talk about. It's okay. Did you guys hear about this? It was a Magic the Gathering tournament where one of the players was like pro Hong Kong and for the protesters, and they're like, just let it go. It's fine. Leave it to Wizards of the Coast to be the good guys. Now we really are in a dystopian future. Good to hear from you, brother. Let's see. We got 2 more from Sean, and I said my boy could read one. So, all right. Go for it.
Funny thing, as a kid, the only Kunio Kun game I had was World Cup Soccer, which is still great and plays like a beat-em-up soccer crossover.
All right, first question. Do you know what a Kunio-kun game is?
No, not at all.
Have you ever played or seen me play River City Ransom?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so River City Ransom is a game where you run down the street and you beat people up and you take their money and you go buy snacks with it.
That sounds like robbery.
It is the robbery of the best kind. We'll play it together. It's great. So what he's talking about is there was an art style that they used for this River City Ransom game that was, I don't know how to describe it. It was like the Japanese kind of art style, but it was the best they could do on the NES. I'll show you a screenshot of it here. And they made several games that look like this, but it was more popular in Japan. I seem to remember playing like the track and field game with you once, where you play as these guys and you run these little relay races. You ever seen these?
Yeah, I remember playing that with you. I don't know if that's the same game, though.
No, it's another one from the series. So there was a soccer game with these guys. That's what he's talking about. And Sean, what I remember the most about World Cup Soccer is on the NES, they paired it with Super Spike V-Ball, which I loved. Super Spike V-Ball is a great game, even though it's just a volleyball game. And I remember that cart because both of those games together were like the only 4-player games that I knew, and I was consistently able to get 4-player games going in World Cup Soccer and Super Spike V-Ball. Never in anything else. Never in any like the truly awesome 4-player games like Gauntlet 2 or anything like that. But I played me some World Cup Soccer. And as I recall, USA is like one of the weakest teams. So, true to life. All right. He also writes, it was a great time playing Neverwinter Nights. We should play some of the expansion or the user-made modules. I agree. I was talking about this with Swingle the other night. I don't want to play... okay, we know what the vanilla game looks like and feels like, and we've had enough of it. Swingle told me you guys tried like some of the premium modules. Okay, that's great, but I want to play the ones that have spelling errors in them. I want to play the ones where like somebody who doesn't really know how to make games made them. That's what I want to play. The ones that are the real like... I made this because I love Dungeons and Dragons and I wanted to make a module that was good. That's what I want to play. So I actually went as far as to download a couple of them, but I haven't played any. I haven't played anything. There's nothing I can like suggest to you yet. But yeah, I totally agree. Especially since you can power level now with the 10 times experience mod that you got. Definitely. But Swingle doesn't get to play because he steals loot. All right. Thanks for writing in, man. Desm101 writes, and he puts a time signature of 53 minutes in. Ha! Nice! The one thing about the Saturn that kind of sucks is those dang prices. Game prices. For imports lately, I scour eBay for deals. Sometimes you'll find a good Saturn game at a bargain. Japanese sellers seem to take so much better care of their discs and cases than US sellers. Lol. The wait for the shipment to arrive seems to drag on forever, too. Ugh. Yeah, I get you with the wait. I actually bought... Hang on a second. Let me run over to my purchase history over on eBay. Because I was looking at Saturn games, and I settled on a Famicom game. And it was the first Famicom game that I've ordered in, so long. And it's... What an exercise in futility. I'm going to look it up, and it's a Japanese game. Pachio-kun number 1, which is like a long-running series of pachinko games on the Famicom where you like play as a pachinko ball, an anamorphic. Is that how you say that word? Anamorphic or anamorphic? You play as a pachinko ball with a face and arms and legs, and he walks around in a pachinko parlor, and there's different machines and stuff. Long-running series. I have a lot of those games. Never had the first one, so I ordered that. Remember, you can still get one of these Famicom games. This was shipped to my house. It was $3.86. I wish we could get that for Sega Saturn. Sega Saturn has some awesome looking pachinko, but you're looking at like $11 minimum. Even if I do the lowest first, where we're looking at like disc-only games, that's not so bad. Just in pachinko, his how twin Sega Saturn. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. $465, $280 shipping. That's like what? $8? 4, 5, 6, 7, almost $8. Yeah, for Sega Saturn. For a Sega Saturn pachinko. Mind you, Sega Saturn has the pachinko controller. Have you seen this, dude? It's a knob that you twist just like a pachinko machine. I love it. Gotta have it. Gotta have it. All my money's going into synthesizers right now, so it'll be a little bit, but gotta have it. It's the greatest thing in the world. As far as other Sega Saturn imports, I don't know, man. I know it's the thing of like the game. Saturn's been around so long now, and the library is small enough that the really good games, everybody knows what they are, and they've become the expensive games that are sought after. Like Radiant Silvergun. I knew what Radiant Silvergun was before I knew anything else about the Sega Saturn. Just because people would buy it and they'd hold it up on their YouTube channel and they would be like, I bought a Radiant Silvergun. I'd be like, that's great. It only cost me $80. That's great. How much does it cost now? Probably more than $80. Radiant Silvergun. How much do you think Radiant Silvergun is, kiddo? It was $80 like 10 years ago.
Don't know.
All right, let's see. That's a poster. It doesn't count. Best match. First one that came up is $200. That doesn't mean that's what it's actually selling for. I can't remember the trick to finding out what things are closing at. $200+? Get out of here. This used to be $80, and I thought that was a lot. $260? $300? Oh, but it has a little piece of paper that in Japan, when you buy video games, I guess I have one near here that I can show you. Where is it at? Yeah, right here. Alright, so the way they package disc-based games in Japan, this is like in America, it just sits there and it's wrapped in paper. But in Japan, they have these little extra pieces of paper that go around the left side. They're like, and they have more information, just a little extra wrapping. And then when the plastic wrap is around it. So that's how you see it in the store, with the extra paper. And then usually when you buy the CD, whether it's music or game or whatever, and you open it up, you take this and you throw it away. And then this is what you keep. So because this has that extra little piece of paper that they've kept, that's why they're charging an extra $50 for it, or $40 or however much more. So they're saying this is a $40 piece of paper. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, I don't really understand that a lot.
Careful, make sure you don't bump the stand. It's packaging, man. It's collectibles. It's however much we can get people to pay for it. That's how much it's worth. But good on them, man. If I was a collector, I got to be honest. If I was a collector and I was looking at a disc-based game and it had the extra piece of paper on the left, let's just say I was looking at the same game, 2 different people were selling it. The person who had it, that'd be the guy I'd buy from. Doesn't mean I'd pay extra for it, though. All right. What was I talking about here? We were talking about Sega Saturn. Yes, Desm. There's still joy to be had there, man. Things are expensive, but that's okay. There's joy to be had. Good to hear from you, brother. I hope your life's going well. What do we got? Another one from Sean. He says, Gemini Rue is pretty cool story-wise, but it has some issues. Still go try it out. Kathy Rain is pretty cool, too. For the most part, but it has some whamming moments, but nothing too bad. Getting some static. The 90s references are mostly not too bad. It's pretty cool overall. If you like Blackwell, Kathy Rain should work for you. Got nothing against the whamming moments. Nothing, that's okay. As long as they have a good game and then those are kind of thrown in, no problem. It only becomes a problem if they start with the political message and then they build a game around the political message. Then what you have is a turd. That's just my opinion. So, question of the beast. So, are there any good, easy games you want to play when you just want to chill? Arcade beat-em-ups in free play mode are the answer for me. Either way, keep up the good work. Great question. Chill games. Chill games for me traditionally, years ago, for many years, it was Minecraft. That was my chill-out game. And I would play it when I would play Counter-Strike Global Offensive in competitive mode, which is super high intensity. And then I would get a string of losses, and I would have like my crybaby games that I would want to play when I just couldn't handle losing. I had to play something you couldn't lose. So Minecraft was my game. And I even put together a little selection of games called Chill Out Games, although I don't really use this much. It's got a few visual novels in it. There's Pinball. Pinball's a good chill out game. I got some Mahjong games that are pretty good for chilling out. The Sims is another really good selection. I have Wizardry 6 in here, but I don't really know if that qualifies. Now that I know a little bit more about Wizardry 6 and I know how brutal it can be. Wacky Wheels is a great chill out game. Any of those kart racing type games. I have the Poker Night at the Inventory games in here, though. I don't know if I would still play those if I wanted to chill out. I used to really like that first Poker Night at the Inventory game. I thought that was awesome. It got old, though. It was aptly priced. Poker game had a lot of like cameos from people from other games, and it was $5. It was understood that you're going to buy this game, you're going to play it for a sitting or two, and that's going to be the end of it. But it was only $5. That's the price range I can still recommend. Let's see. We got one on the Ski Free video. Hood Mistress Reloaded says, I used to play this in Jezball on my computer in class in middle school. Good times, man. I always hated getting gobbled up by that Yeti, too. You know what's funny about that? Back in the day, in the 90s, when Ski Free was like on every computer, everybody used to lie and say there was a way to beat the Abominable Snowman. Everybody. And you couldn't do it, just because the game wasn't built that way. So that's a funny thing about remembering back in the days when Ski Free was still the popular game. Okay, so the next one we have here has a nice thread attached to it. So here we go. Julia writes, just admit you can't pronounce twins. It's fine. I still think it's the time of year for horror video games. Visage looks really creepy. I heard Alan Wake has some Stephen King moments, Stephen King elements to it, going back to the discussion on that. My nephew is obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's. Have you ever played that? He has the stuffed animals everywhere in his room, and it really freaks me out. Fallout 4. A lot of people complain about the repetitive errand missions, but it's really not that bad. There's so many builds, play styles. There's so many unique ways to play, especially with mods. You okay? Want a sip? It's tea. It's not hot anymore. There's so many builds and play styles and unique ways to play, especially with mods. Also, I think you really need to get Red Dead Redemption and Undead Nightmare already. You're right, I do. And I think at this point, the only thing that stops me is that I haven't really been... Actually, you know what? Now that you mention it, wonder what those go for, because the 360 is old news by now. Red Dead... Ooh. Oh, my spelling. You ever spell something so bad that autocorrect can't take care of it for you? It's like we don't know what you're trying to say, man. I'm sorry. All right, not Red Dead Redemption 2. I get it. Red Dead Redemption. I need to add some more RAM to this computer, man. We're going to say Xbox 360. Give me a price. Give me a price. Oh my gosh, come on. Delete the 2 and hit enter. We're loading. Complete with map, $10. I could do $10. The twofer? Is that the twofer? Game of the Year edition. With like the zombie mode in it too, for like $14. Alright, let's do the lowest first. You know, that's like going to the trash bin on eBay when you look something up and you sort by price. Okay, Undead Nightmare disc only for $4.97. Tell me something, Julia. Can I play this without a map? Because it says there's get it with the map. Do I need that? Can I just get like the disc only and then just play it with the disc only? You know, I have plenty of those like CD folders. I can just slide it into one of those and call it a day. Yeah, look at this. I can get that game for $5. Yes. Let me know about the map thing first, and then we'll figure it out. Five Nights at Freddy's. Yes, I played that. I bought Five Nights at Freddy's the night it came out. It was either the night or it was the night it came out. Yeah. I remember seeing a trailer for it and thinking it looked like a game called Night Trap. You familiar with Night Trap? Night Trap's a horror game from the early days. This was like a 3DO Sega CD kind of game. It was all done with real footage. Something people refer to as the Hollyweird era of video games, where we were just coming off the Super Nintendo. We didn't have the PlayStation yet in the market, so they were trying to figure out ways they could make games look cooler. So they would hire these low budget, no name actors, and they would film them in these terrible studio conditions. And then you would have games with, hey kids, there's actually real people in it. And in some cases it was really neat. Some cases it was really lame, like in Harvester, where you can't really, it's all just silly nonsense. But one of those games was called Night Trap, and the idea was it was like a sorority girls in like a house, and there were people who were coming and trying to kill them. And the idea was you would look on the security cameras, and you could activate traps, and you could use the traps to get the bad guys. But this was like a horror game, so it was supposed to be really scary. But it was like the scariest they could make it, I guess. I don't know. Do yourself a favor and look up Night Trap for premium laughs. I played Five Nights at Freddy's because I expected it to be like Night Trap. So the first time I ever played it, it was 1 a.m, and I set up my laptop in the dark. And wow, that's a game that'll have you on edge. I don't understand how children get down with Five Nights at Freddy's. I really don't. I don't. At my kids' school, they do a thing where all the kids put on their costumes and they kind of do a parade, and the parents get to look at them and wave. Hey kids, you know, everybody's from the same neighborhood. We all know each other. It's cool. Get to look at the costumes. Every year there's like there's that one Five Nights at Freddy's kid who dresses up as Freddy Fazbear, and the best part is like the older people don't really know. They don't get the reference that it's from, you know, a nightmare teddy bear that kills people. But yeah.
Oh man, that's so fun.
Fallout 4 is actually on sale right now on Steam. It's like $12. Yeah. I don't know. Oh, and she writes, also, do you have any recommendations for indie horror games or know any other indie games you think are really great? So let's talk about indie horror for a second. To answer your question, there's 2 games that come to mind immediately. One is called, oh wow, what is that game called? Outlast. There it is. Oh, jeez. Yeah, that came to mind immediately, didn't it? Outlast. That is an amazing game. And based on what you're talking about, it sounds like it's right up your alley. It's set up like a first-person game, but there's no shooting involved. You get... you're running. You have to run from the monster. The monster chases you, and then you run into like a dark place, and then you have to hide and then look around, right? And yet you have one of those old-style camcorders that has like the night vision, and you use that, and that's how you can tell where the monster is in the dark. That is a scary game. That's one of... I think that might be the only game I can say I watched the entire game on a Let's Play back when it came out. Yeah, look up Outlast for sure. I know there's a sequel. I don't know anything about the sequel, but I know that first game is baller. The other game would be Amnesia: The Dark Descent. That's another one of these run from the monster kind of games. It's a little older and not quite as fast paced, but it's a classic. It's kind of it was the first game where it was like you can't look at the monster. You're running from the monster, and if you turn and look at the monster and you see the monster, then you lose, and it's game over. There have been a couple games since then that have done that. I know the Slender Man games are famous for that, but Amnesia: The Dark Descent, pretty sure that game did it first. Those are the two I would start with. As far as indie games in general that are great, play Terraria. Terraria is the game my son and I play together. It's the second most played game in my Steam account next to Gary's Mod. And I'm trying to look up how much time it has in it now, but it takes me forever to bring up my Steam collection because it's so large. Alright, so we'll give that a second to load and we'll get back to it. Mecha says, I understand kids being into freaky Monster Freddy characters. What I can't understand is the sudden explosion of crappy toys in toy aisles, as if everyone decided that weird Chinese knockoff toys would actually be legitimately and not laughed at or enjoyed, ironically. What's ironic is those American toy companies manufacture their tat in China. Stupid pooing unicorn ice cream makers. I think the funniest part of that is that has a thumbs up, so we're going to give that another one. Yeah, 389 hours in Terraria, by the way. Second most played game, behind Gary's Mod at 578 hours. These are the games I played in college. My boy and I used to play... we would play Terraria in LAN parties. I set up a second account almost exclusively just to play that game. So we had two computers on two desks that were right next to each other. This is years ago. And we would play these long, all-day sessions of Terraria that probably were not good for a developing child, but they were good times, man. I guess that's why we have the poo emoji to thank for that one. It's interesting how kids are so savvy to internet culture now, and how that influences their toys. I mean, Freddy's a part of that. I had no clue what it was until I just had to stay in his room one night with all those freaky dolls looking at me. He went as Freddy Fazbear for Halloween, too. And he's only 5, and he loves scary stuff. The whole Momo thing. I don't know how actually scary the game is, but I guess is it popular? Alright, so quick break here. It's pretty scary. So here's the thing with Five Nights at Freddy's. There's no gore in it. It's not gore at all. It's all jump scares. You sit in the place, and at any point they could jump scare you, and you just have to wait. And in order to build tension, sometimes they just jump scare you and you lose. Just happens out of nowhere, so you know it could happen at any time. It's the first one that came out was a $5 game, and again, because it was so cheap, you could play it for a while and then you'd get bored of it, and that was okay. It was kind of weird that it became like a huge cultural phenomenon. Even at the time, like looking at the Steam, Community Hub, you could tell that it was just blowing up in popularity. Very weird, but yeah, it's a fun little game. Don't worry about the whole series or any of the ethos or the lore or any of that crap. If you ever got $5 and you want some spooks, get that first game. It is truly not bad. Mecha Menace writes, the turd emoji is something I never thought was cute. That was probably a Japanese import, since I remember seeing those googly-eyed mounds in 90s to 2000-ish anime. YouTube is one way kids absorb culture nowadays. It's something that they don't have to pay for, easily accessible, relays their interests from one vid to the next, and allows them to interact instantly with others who watched. In some ways, I can see how that can exaggerate certain tendencies while not rounding out their knowledge of the world. There are plenty of TV channels when I was a kid. However, I was forced to watch and discover whatever the older generation thought was cool by appearances on late night shows, SNL, or cameos on sitcoms. There was some variation and enough that disinterested me, so I could turn it off. Now, here's something about that, Mecha Menace. Do you remember being excited for seeing something come on TV? That's something that's gone now, isn't it? Oh my gosh, the Beavis and Butthead comes on in an hour. I'm so excited. I'm excited. I'm in anticipation of this thing that's coming. Whatever it may be. Now you only get that if you're into sports, because they get, the game comes on at whatever time. It's the big game. I think this is the end of the thread. It's the last one. Julia writes, I worry about things they have access to, but mostly it could mean for their what it could mean for their attention span. Oh, you said it. I can't imagine having so much internet at that age. I didn't figure out YouTube until college because we still had dial-up then. They seem to know about know about the Illuminati thanks to YouTube. So, I'm concerned, but nothing ever seems to faze them, and they mostly watch the other kids play with their toys, like all the kids seem to be obsessed with YouTube. I mean, what is life, really? Now, I feel like I'm reading that wrong, but we're going to go with it anyway, because I'm very tired. You watch YouTube with your friends, don't you?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. I think what they're talking about is a lot like when we were kids, we used to do a thing. And you guys all did this. Okay, I'm 35 years old. I don't know what the age bracket is, but if you're even close to my age, you did this. We would watch scary movies we weren't supposed to watch on TV when we thought no one was around. So we'd take the remote for the TV, right? And you'd turn the TV down and you'd get really close to it like this. And you would put on the scary movies with all the blood. And you would have your hand on the power button. Or the best one was the button to go back to the last channel. So you would flip it to like the news, and then you'd flip it to the scary movie, and you would just watch like this. And then the second you heard Mom coming, and then you'd hit the button, and then she would come by the corner, and there would be Pokemon or news or whatever. That's what we all did. I did that a little bit, but now people would watch all these scary movies, and for the most part, the kids were fine. For the most part, that's what I think of when I hear about kids being cut loose on YouTube. Yeah, it's scary. It is, but they'll be okay. I'm not losing a whole lot of sleep over it. Just parents got to be parents. You know what I'm saying? As long as there's parents, they'll be all right. And that is it. I thought No, it isn't. It isn't. We've got one from Mecha Menace. All right. Mecha Menace writes, I bought the lamest banana last week. There were only 2 bananas at the store, and I decided to make a banana granola that day. The other guy was beaten and bruised more. I didn't really want to take that either. I love it that you called the other banana a guy. I think both singles were mishandled hundreds of times by customers that vented their frustration and refused to take that banana touched by everyone. The banana situation was much better this week, though. I didn't take any since I didn't want to make any more granola. Julia writes, should have made banana bread. Poor banana might have missed its purpose in life. I actually don't know how to make banana bread. People make it in my household. My wife can make it. Her mom can make it. I don't know how to make it, which I burn through tons of bananas, so I feel like that's something I should fix, but I don't know. Yes, thrilled by your tales of banana stories. And that's it. Big thanks to everybody who kicked around in the comments section. That was the most that we had to read in a long time. What an awesome episode, man. I had a really good time. Thanks for joining me. Big thanks again to everybody who talked in the comment section. Thanks to the sponsors over on Patreon. My goodness, you guys are lifesavers. I feel like that's peaking. That's peaking pretty hard. Is that better? I can't tell you. I can't tell you. You guys saved the week. You really did. And you do it all the time. Thanks so much. And with that, boys and girls, whatever it is you got to do this week, whether it's going to school or going to work, keep at it. Don't give up. Keep getting out of bed, especially when you don't feel like it. That's when you got to kick it into gear and really summon some grit. Join us next Monday. I'll see you then.